Welcome everyone to Good Night and Good Game, your source for geek news for the weeks that were. I'm your host James, and with me as always is my wonderful co-host Hector.
Hello.
And our fantastic producer John.
It's me.
This week on the show, after the news, we're going to take a deep dive into John Wick and how they handle his universe versus the MCU. Before we start, don't forget that you could head over to goodnight.gg, where as a patron of our show, you can suggest topics for us to talk about. Also, as a patron, you get access to our off-week episodes. We're about to kick off our Tales from the Crypt series watch, and we will be posting the first episode of that for free very soon. All right, with all that out of the way, it's time to get into the Weekly Raid.
The Weekly Raid.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Weekly Raid, and it's time for your roundup of this week's geek news. Kicking things off this week, with some good news for X-Files fans. Recently, LEGO held a contest called Build Your Own Nostalgia 90s Throwback. The winner of the competition built a very impressive 2020-piece X-Files set that is now undergoing some development over at LEGO HQ, and we should see it on the shelves in the future.
The first time I saw this, I wanted it so bad. I still want it so bad. I know how expensive these are, and I'm not even a LEGO collector. And to be completely honest, I'm not even that big of an X-Files fan. And I say that being an X-Files fan, but like I know how y'all can be. Mm-hmm. I've watched a curated list of episodes of like all the best ones from a good friend who watched them all, and I had the time of my life. I didn't really care for the episodes without David Duchovny, but I do like the series. It is very good. And as soon as I saw this, and you can see on the screen now, if you're watching rather than listening, that the set, I don't know if it's backlit or if it actually functions as a lamp. If this functions as a lamp, I'm fucking getting it. Like, it is way too cool. It has all of the detail. It has, like, so many great little homages and Easter eggs to everything that's great about the show. And
well, I can tell you right now, as somebody who right behind us, we have a very lit up firehouse from Ghostbusters.
Oh, yeah.
That didn't come with lights, but you can buy custom lighting kits that you can put into them. So if it's not a lamp, you could probably make it into one.
Would. Absolutely. Goes in my library. I'm so excited.
I will say that I have been told in no subtle terms that I am required to purchase this for my wife's birthday coming up.
Well, there you go.
Let us know if you need help finding one.
Moving on from LEGO, by the time that this episode does go to air, Ryan Coogler's amazing vampire film Sinners will be airing on HBO Max. Even cooler than that is that the release of this movie will be the first time any streaming platform has debuted a film with Black American Sign Language as a version that you can experience.
Even coogler than that?
Ooh, didn't. Between this and some amazing things like the Comanche language release of Prey, we're getting some really cool representation and accessibility in our pop culture.
No, today I learned that there was a black version of ASL. That's very cool. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that would entail, but I am intrigued and fascinated. And this movie, dear listener / viewer / watcher on stream, if you haven't seen this movie, you are fucking up.
They've already seen it, man.
It
was such a huge hit.
Just in case anyone is out there who hasn't seen this movie, please do
Currently movie of the year.
Do yourself
I think I'm the only one who hasn't seen it in the country.
It's movie of the year.
Do yourself a favor and watch this movie as soon as possible. It is the kind of movie that you watch and you instantly want to watch again. Mm-hmm. The kind of movie that makes you think about it for days after you watched it. It has such a motherfucking banger of a soundtrack that, like, that is the only way that I can describe it is a motherfucking banger. Like, it slaps. It Will Smiths. It
slaps you in the face.
Yeah.
And then it spits in your mouth, actually. And you'll understand that if you watch the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, you will.
Keeping on the vampire train, if you didn't know news, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is coming back thanks to Hulu. Sarah Michelle Gellar is coming back to play Buffy, and it's going to be focusing on an all-new Slayer, all things that we have talked about previously. But this week, we found out they're going to be taking their time with the series because they're really trying to modernize Buffy. They've also talked about how they want to bring back many of the characters from the show, possibly including ones that have died previously. But they're finding that their biggest challenge is that they really want to balance the nostalgia for the past while making space for all new stories as well.
See, there's something weirdly intriguing about this because when the show is coming out, and I was watching it, and I actually didn't watch it while it was coming out, but I watched it.
I didn't either because I watched the movie and I was like, that's not the movie. Fuck this show.
Right, and I just wasn't available for TV while this was airing. I have different things going on in my life, but I did binge the entire series over a couple of months in the mid-aughts, 2010, between 2010 and 2015. Maybe between like 2012 or so. The point is that I watched the show at a specific time where, and if anyone is this old and remembers this part of history, men, the good ones, were trying to learn to be better men, trying to learn to listen, trying to learn to not be so defensive or so just misogynistic and awful. And we were trying to unlearn all the things that were taught to us by Tales from the Crypt, basically.
We had to bring it back around.
Yeah, but there was a lot of that, and I was watching the show, and I was like, God damn, the show is cool. It's about powerful women. Look at me, like, enjoying all the themes, and I love vampires, and I love slaying, and I love all the characters, except for, God,
Xander.
what's his name?
Xander,
except for Xander.
Nobody likes
Xander was a
Xander.
piece of shit then, and he's way worse now when you go back and rewatch the show. But
even as a human being.
yeah, and the actor is a human being as well. But we don't need to get into all of that. The point is, I felt like an ally for watching the show, but I also got to really enjoy the show. So it's a twofer, it's good on both ends. And
You got to have the man twofer for watching
exactly,
Buffy
I
show.
got a man twofer. But as time goes on, and you learn things about its writer/director, and you learn things about the way people were treated on set and stuff like that, and it puts a bad taste in your mouth because you really liked this show.
Can I just say, being an edgelord hater paid off finally. I hated
Fuck
Joss
that
Whedon
show,
for
I'm
so
justified.
long, and I was right.
Way to be totally chill about that, John.
Yeah,
Right.
you're
Way to be
welcome.
very calm and not at all just like gloating at all.
Not like I fucking told you. Except back then I was telling you he was a hack,
Yeah.
not a misogynist.
Yeah, I didn't
and a
know that.
creeper.
Damn it.
But anyway,
Good on
so
you. This is our applause for you not liking Joss
Where's my
Whedon.
cookie?
we are baking them
Yeah.
fresh for you.
You get it after the show.
Yay!
But where I was going with this is I am usually not on the side of remaking things to change them.
Sure.
I'm usually not on the side of remaking things in general, unless I
I mean,
think
this
it's
is technically not a remake. It's a
Right.
It is sequel.
Continuation?
like we're doing. No, it's not a continuation.
Oh.
It is a reboot.
Sarah Michelle Gellar stated specifically this is going to be a continuation, and
So it's like after the Hellmouth is closed and they're in the
after
apocalypse.
all of that, Hellmouth is closed. They're going to be taking some of the points from the comics, actually, the After series comics. They're going to be incorporating some of the After comics into it as well. It's going to have layers to it, but it is
Right.
not going to say there wasn't a Buffy series. She's effectively going to be the Watcher for the new Buffy.
Okay.
But she is playing Buffy from the series that we watched.
Well, that's really interesting, and I have a ton of questions, but that's neither here nor there for the purpose of this conversation. What I was going with was, for this specific show, I liked the idea of trying to take it in a new direction after we had to knock some of the dirt off of it. And that's my favorite thing to hear, because at first when I heard, hey, Buffy is going to continue or be remade or whatever I heard, I was like, why? What for? Like what are we doing? And then I heard Joss Whedon is in no way involved, and I was like,
Yep.
ooh, what are we doing? Why? What for? And now I'm just sitting here intrigued by what they come up with. And I'm even more intrigued now that I know it won't be a high school, Monster of the Week show with a cast of wacky characters shepherded by Buffy instead of Giles and the actor who played Giles.
That sounds like fun to me.
It does sound like fun.
Yeah.
It sounds interesting. It'll be interesting if it's an actual, apocalypse, bus tour
So
show.
they are talking about how one of the challenges the challenges they're trying to embrace with the new series is that they want to do things like, say, if the new Slayer is in high school, we'll assume at this point.
Sure.
How does the modern teenager deal with things like social media when there are fucking monsters.
Yeah, impossible.
Like-
and then every time Buffy stabbed anyone, there would be like 50 cameras pointed at
Right.
her. She would
And
light
they're-
up Facebook.
But it makes me happy because the more that Sarah Michelle Gellar's opened up about this, because she's in a big role in this, not just playing Buffy, but also working on helping with the scripts and the ideas and all of those things and figuring out how they're going to try and modernize it properly. And if I've said anything, it's that I look forward to the younger generation of horror creators because they're going to be the ones who know how to embrace technology in the way that current horror creators tend to not, right? Modern horror writers and directors tend to do we'll just set it in the past because there was no phones then, or it's you went into the haunted house and suddenly phones don't work. Nobody tries to work around the technology itself.
Yeah.
And so for them saying that they're going to really respect the technology and try and use it in a way that feels natural to the characters, that's kind of cool.
No, I'm very interested to see what they come up with. Whenever this is ready, my eyeballs are also ready.
Yeah.
Give it. I'm in.
So if the announcement of Spaceballs 2 wasn't enough Mel Brooks for you, Mel Brooks is now the executive producer on a new FX show called Very Young Frankenstein. So if you're unfamiliar, Young Frankenstein is a very, very famous Mel Brooks film. It is absolutely fantastic. Just barrels of laughs. But they're going to do a new show called Very Young Frankenstein. Now, the kicker to this whole thing is going to be who's going to be working on the project.
Right.
Now, Taika Waititi is going to be directing the pilot, and many of the people who worked on What We Do in the Shadows are going to be involved in this project.
See, Young Frankenstein was one of my VHS tapes as a kid. Hearing that Taika Waititi is going to work on this gives me hope. And also saying anything at all about What We Do in the Shadows gives me hope. That being said, I'm not sure I want to see Young Frankenstein without Gene Wilder and Gene Hackman and all of the wonderful people who worked on this incredible movie that I was too young to see when I saw it, but still knew it was funny somehow. And then when I watched it as an adult, just it left me with a stitch in my side from laughter. What a fucking masterpiece. And I don't say that a lot about comedy. I'm not usually turned on by comedy in that way to use words like that. But this movie, yeah, absolutely. So it is with very, very cautious enthusiasm that I will check out what this is.
I'm just hoping.
I have a very high bar for what this is going to be.
I'm hoping whoever they cast, even if it's comedians, that it is thespians, like hardcore actors who are willing to commit to the joke.
Would you like to have a role in the head?
All right. Real quick, it's worth noting that John Bernthal's Punisher has been confirmed to be involved in the upcoming Spider-Man Brand New Day. This will be the second time Bernthal has appeared in the MCU post his Netflix show, having just cameoed in Daredevil Born Again Season 1.
Put John Barenthal in everything. I fucking dare
Yeah.
you. I dare you, media, to make me sick of John Barenthal. You're not going to do it. I fucking dare you to try. I dare you to try. He and all the Marvel stuff and the Bear and a bunch of my favorite movies. Like you're just put him in there and just try to make me sick of it. I dare you. I double dog dare you.
History time.
Give him all the money and all the work, please.
History time. For those of you who maybe don't follow comics, Punisher was originally a bad guy. Just throwing that out there.
Weird.
And his very first appearance was him hunting Spider-Man. It would be...
What the fuck did Spider-Man do?
He was a bad guy back then. Did it matter?
A little bit. Maybe if the Punisher wasn't fleshed out yet, then he doesn't need to have principles.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that the Punisher was supposed to be like the new Craven or something?
Kind of, yeah.
Or maybe
Actually,
the old
back then-
Craven before we had Craven.
Yes.
Yeah.
Craven when he was interesting.
So the Punisher was originally a Spider-Man villain. That's
Absolutely.
the origin?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the origin of Punisher. And so I don't know if they would have the guts to do it, but it would be interesting given that Spider-Man effectively reset its continuity with the last movie.
That's true.
To see if they would have the Punisher engage with him in that capacity. And sure, by the end of it, they could buddy team up and do both pew-pew into something. But... yeah.
So I'm thinking about like Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi Spider-Man, where he hunts down his uncle's killer, and he doesn't quite push him out the window, but lets him fall out of a window and doesn't do anything about it. And he's like, yeah, fuck that guy. And now I'm just picturing John Barenthal showing up with a shotgun and fucking murdering Tobey Maguire. Because Tobey Maguire wouldn't stand a fucking chance. That Spider-Man has no chance against John Barenthal's Punisher. Like, he's real fast and he has Spidey sense. Bullets are fast. Bullets are real fast, and he likes to snipe shit, and he likes to build traps. Right now, I'm just in my brain, I'm watching John Barenthal murder Tobey Maguire, and it is both hilarious and a little bit scary. So I'm pretty excited for what this means as far as Spider-Man and the Punisher goes.
And for those of you who are not here watching it live, John's pulling up an image of the first appearance of the Punisher in Spider-Man. And the cover is literally the Punisher holding a rifle with a crosshair over Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He was not a good man. He was not a good character at the beginning.
Was he ever?
I mean, never. He's an anti-hero now. Punisher was not a good guy when he joined the MCU or the comics back in the day. He tried to kill Spider-Man. I would love for that to be the story they bring into the new Spider-Man movie, to be honest. Because based on what we got from the movie before, like, nobody knows who Spider-Man is. So he just might be a menace now.
Yeah.
Also, that's the only way that Spider-Man makes friends. Like, that's how he became friends with Wolverine, and I'm pretty sure the Punisher.
I think he became friends with Wolverine because they both like banging redheads.
Oh.
I mean, it's a good thing to have in common with your bros.
Yeah, that's true.
You might get an Eskimo cousin at some point.
There you go.
I'm not sure that's politically correct to say. I apologize if it's not.
I think they're called tunnel buddies nowadays.
Tunnel
Hector?
buddies,
God.
is that worse or better?
I don't know. Audience chime in on that.
It's more sensitive.
I guess.
All
Not
right.
to women.
Let's fucking talk about video games.
Sorry,
Is it Wiener
everyone.
Cousins? I think it's Wiener Cousins.
All right. All right.
So, the first thing that I saw when I opened my newsfeed this morning was the announcement that on the 26th of August, the Sony and PC exclusive game Helldivers 2 will be coming to the Xbox Series X and S, which is the exact same day that Gears of War Reloaded will be dropping on the PlayStation 5.
More games and more platforms is good. Like, exclusivity is a joke these days. Just ask Microsoft. But sometimes you got to protect your brand and do things, but it's always good when more people can play a game that I like playing. So yeah, for Helldivers 2, this is good news.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, ever since Helldivers came out, there were a ton of TikToks back in the day, back when it was kind of in the height of its popularity, that was just like, we can't wait for the ODSTs to show up.
Oh yeah.
Right? It was like, someday maybe we'll get lucky and Sony will allow us to like have our game on Xbox so that we can have more people fighting in the war. And now it's happening. I honestly super excited.
Very excited. I'm happy to jump back in, and I haven't played for a little while.
There was a ton of Helldivers news this week. I don't want to get into all of it, but one of the other really cool ones, because the Arrowhead Studios, the creators of Helldivers 2, they love their community.
Yep.
And forever the community's been joking about how they wanted to have a cape for their characters that actually showed all of the downvotes that the game got on Steam when PlayStation had to. It's a whole story about how
you had to have a PlayStation account.
Yeah, it was a whole thing. And now they're making that cape and giving it to everybody for free.
Yep. So now there's a cape that has a graphic that actually looks like the downvote like spiral from it's hilarious.
It's gonna be great. So we're going to talk about Microsoft-specific news a bit more at the end of this segment. But for right now, I just want to focus on Xbox, because one of the co-founders of Xbox, Laura Fryer, now, mind you, she no longer works for Microsoft, but she was interviewed recently about the upcoming ROG Xbox Ally handheld console. So this is obviously one of the many new handheld consoles that are about to launch. But I want to give you her quote via IGN. She said, "Obviously, as one of the founding members of the Xbox team, I'm not pleased where things are today. I don't love watching all the value that I helped create slowly get eroded away, and I'm sad that because from my perspective, it looks like Xbox has no desire or literally can't ship hardware anymore. So this new partnership with ROG Ally is just about a slow exit from the hardware business completely, and personally, I think Xbox hardware is dead."
Damn.
100% she's right. It is. And I mean, hardware, despite the amazing thing that Nintendo just pulled off with the Switch 2, and I have my qualms with that. It's not a perfect piece of kit in any sense, but the hardware machine seems like a folly right now, especially in the era of quarterly earnings results and needing to make more money literally every 3 months than you did the last. It's hard to look ahead into the future and say, hey, we're going to operate at a loss for the next year while our consoles become ubiquitous, and then all of a sudden all of our hardware sales, all of our software sales will go through the roof. That companies, capitalism doesn't have patience for that shit anymore. There's no long game, at least not in the United States, and which is where Microsoft is from and how they gauge the economy. So yeah, absolutely, 100%, I would say Xbox hardware is dead, is absolutely dead. And they are going to look outside of themselves for a way to sell hardware. And they're obviously running up against a problem where the ROG Ally runs Windows. And all of the Steam hardware runs Steam and Linux, and the exact same game.
Speaking of, guess who got their Steam Deck today?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so the exact same game will run on better hardware on a ROG Ally than a, base model early edition Steam Deck, and it'll run better on the Steam Deck simply because it doesn't have to carry Windows under it. And, that's where we are. And, Microsoft is actually addressing that, and they're working on it, but I will be very, very surprised if we see another Xbox. I'm not exactly at, I will shit in both of my hands and clap if it happens.
I would say
but
minimum,
we're getting there.
If they did another one, maybe one more.
Maybe one more,
That's
but
that's a bold, caps lock, maybe underline.
I am certain we will see a PlayStation 6.
Oh, absolutely.
And we might even see a
They're already
Switch
confirmed
3.
they're trying to work on a PlayStation 6,
Yeah.
and we are not even done with this console generation.
Yeah, but as far as another Xbox goes, I don't see it right now. What games have gone crazy on Xbox this generation, or last generation for that matter?
Has not.
Yeah.
Has not. All right. Next up in the what dystopian nightmare are we living in news now, Riot Games, the developers behind the wildly successful League of Legends and Valorant games, are now going to allow sports betting sponsorships for their games. Riot is claiming that there will never be advertising during their tournaments for these sponsorships, and that no sponsors' logos will appear on teams' jerseys. Riot has also claimed that the money from these sponsorships will go towards funding lower division esports tournaments. If you're unfamiliar with League of Legends or Valorant, understand that these are two of the biggest esports games out there right now.
So is Riot Games saying we're going to allow sports betting, but we promise not to make any money off of it?
They're not saying
Because that shit isn't true. And anyone who thinks it is, I have a bridge to sell you to democracy.
And forget that bridge. I wonder how many weeks it will take before we figure out all the players have been purchased by gamblers.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. Because
Keep in mind that these esports players, they're starting young.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, really young, and they're not
only starting young, but they're not well paid.
They're not making the salary of somebody playing basketball or football.
Yeah, it's not like joining the NBA. It's like joining junior whale shit Canadian hockey.
To gamblers, they're basically free.
Yep.
These are free assets that are just going to be scooped up very quickly.
Yeah. Super. Like anyone who says, "Don't worry, we're bringing in gambling to our sport ethically." With emphasis on the ethically, they are actually telling you the opposite of that. I speak from personal experience.
And I would not blame any of these players for taking money.
Oh, no.
No, never in a million years. They need to get theirs
Yeah.
in the industry that they happen to enjoy. I hope they understand that it means it will shitify the thing that they enjoy.
Let's talk about esports for a second.
But
because
let them make their money.
esports compared to traditional sports, just a small comparison here. Because keep in mind that there are a lot of professional sports players that at 18 go into professional leagues and they can stay there. And they can stay there probably till, their 30s. If you're getting into your 40s or 50s in a traditional sport, you're probably hurting your body a lot. But you're going to come out the other end with a lot of money should you have not been stupid about it. Esports players, most of them, as it's believed currently, you have from a very young age to like your mid 20s to like be at your peak. And people are starting to debate and dispute that, sure. But it is seen for most people that is the age that you get to be an active participant in esports and be good on a professional level. So you're telling me that a group of like, say, early 20s players that are all on a team together that go, oh, we could make a lot of money that would just set us right for the rest of our lives if we just threw one game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, we live in capitalism right now.
Yeah.
And I know that if I was that esports kid, I'd fucking take that bet.
It's one thing growing up watching baseball or basketball or football and being like, no, the integrity of the game, the trophy means something. Do you think any of these kids give a shit about the integrity of
no.
Valorant?
We weren't
They
the
have
ones who
literally
gave
played against
ourselves
cheaters.
participation trophies, by the way.
Yeah,
Okay,
there are people.
I think Bill Burr said that. Like we only cared about the pizza party. You guys gave us the participation
It was such
trophy.
a dumb joke, but yes.
You these kids grew up playing this game, and every once in a while they would encounter an actual honest-to-God cheater who ran software behind his game to cheat at the game for nothing, for free. It took them time and effort to install those cheats and hide them from the powers that be when it came to, authentication and cheat monitoring and stuff like that. And they did it anyway just so that they could win a game nobody cared about. And you think they wouldn't practice the exact same behavior, or in the opposite, literally not having any of that effort and just kind of not shooting as well for an hour for a big payout that wouldn't equal 10% of what the better was getting paid out from a match? Yeah, there's no integrity here.
It's not if, it's when and how much. Like,
yeah, I mean,
it's inevitable.
Yeah, it all feels like a bit of a slippery slope argument, but it's there. It's absolutely there. If this can happen in baseball, if it can happen in boxing, if it can happen in football or basketball.
I'm just waiting for all the credit card companies and credit industry to like start crumbling because we thought all these people in massive amounts of debt would eventually pay us back. Yeah. And now it's not happening.
Well,
ever.
I was going to pay you back, and I made a massive bet to get all the money to pay you back, but I'm bad at betting.
Yeah.
Yeah. This should all be very interesting going forward. I'm not myself a huge fan of the of these esports in particular, but if I was, I would be pretty upset by this.
All right. Keep that anger with you, though, because we're going to be going into our final two pieces of news this week, which are going to be about Microsoft.
Don't you worry. My anger didn't go anywhere.
All right. So, first up, over the last week, Microsoft has announced that it is laying off over 9,000 workers in its second mass layoff in months. The head of Xbox, Phil Spencer, said that these cuts would, quote, allow us to focus on strategic growth areas. Because of these layoffs, huge projects like the previously announced Perfect Dark reboot have been canned. Keep in mind that in May, Microsoft laid off roughly 6,000 workers, and all of these numbers that are provided are via AP News. That is 15,000 employees.
Yeah.
Well, they got to enhance efficiency.
Yeah, I don't know.
Could you imagine working in a room with like thousands of other people, elbow to elbow?
How is it efficient to lay off 9,000 employees?
Elbow room, Hector.
Their elbows are not part of what they produce. In fact, I bet you plenty of them were working from home.
Oh.
Look, Microsoft made, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it is tens, but I think it's less than 100. I know it's less than $100 billion in profit, based on like $250 billion in revenue. This company is swimming in profit, and to say that it is necessary to lay off 9,000 people and cancel projects that had potential just in order to satisfy a bottom line on a quarterly report is ghoulish. I mean, it is the end of it's the end of a business. If I had a magic wand I could wave, and I do not hold any animosity towards Microsoft, my computer is is a fucking Windows machine. And I use it a lot to play games on Steam. But what this company is doing and has been doing for years now, layoffs every quarter just to try and increase profitability, to just caring absolutely nothing for the lives that they impact. And I am not singling out Microsoft here. It is just about everyone in this industry, and every business in the world is doing the same thing. There ought to be a fucking law. And I say this every time we bring this up, but my God, imagine what laying off 9,000 people does to the industry, does to the economy where those 9,000 people live. We have to have protections from this.
That's why I always
have to.
That's why I always want to mention the numbers every time that we talk about this, because a lot of articles say like, "Oh, Microsoft just did another round of layoffs. They're trying to like make things more efficient." Da 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 da. But like nobody is talking about the human cost of this, and I'm just sitting here going, "But why aren't we talking the human cost of this?"
Right.
And if you want to be all capitalist about it, let's take a minute and consider what 15,000 employees who are all making an honest living wage. Let's assume they're making an honest living wage for a second.
Yeah.
So it's in this pretend scenario. What
Pretend they're well-paid.
15,000 well-paid people do to the economy, right? We're talking food, we're talking housing, we're talking paying your vehicles,
Yeah.
and
never forget,
childcare,
everyone
all these
needs
things.
everything. Everyone needs a car.
Right.
Everyone needs a house. Everyone needs clothes. Everyone needs diapers for their baby. Everyone needs a microwave. Everyone needs
And they were all
food in a
paying
refrigerator
taxes.
and TV, and they all
Paying
need Hulu,
taxes.
and they all need Netflix, and they're all paying taxes, and now they need unemployment benefits and Medicaid.
Yep.
And guess what? We just cut. There has to be a law. There has to be a law. I mean, if I were, and I'm not, but if I were a politician, I'd be like, look, if your company participates in mass layoffs, they must immediately provide 1 year's salary to every person laid off, period. And by mass layoff, I mean more than 2 people in a year. Like you're not allowed to wiener it out. We only fired 2 people a day, so we fired 2 people every day for a year. No, absolutely not. We have to do something to protect these people in every industry. We need a strong labor movement in this country and in the world, or else we're not going to have anything except for billionaires and hungry people. And you know what? I bet billionaire tastes like chicken.
And I don't want to call out any media outlets because I understand that they cater their news for the specific places that they're posting to. So the way that the AP News reports on this number versus the way that GameSpot reports on this number is very different. There were definitely a lot of articles, which is why I included it in here with things like, hey, the Perfect Dark reboot got canned, which made a lot of people go, well, that sucks. But the reason I talk about it the way that I do is understand that, yes, it sucks the Perfect Dark reboot got canceled. It also sucks more that 15,000 people now are looking for work in an industry that is increasingly having less and less people able to work in it.
Yeah, but we were going to see Phil Spencer and whoever the co-head of Xbox is just vibe coding with ChatGPT trying to make the next Xbox exclusive.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not going to go well because they're not going to have anyone who knows what the fuck they're doing. And we're actively working against all the people in the industry who used to know what the fuck they're doing.
And aren't they all making way more money every single year? Like across the board, isn't gaming a bigger?
Every year, number
That's
goes up.
the incentive. That's the capitalism of it. Every year they make those quarterly earnings go up. They get a fat fucking bonus. So why would they stop?
Oh, yeah.
Why would they stop hurting everybody? Think about how much richer and protected them and their family will be when there's nothing but hungry people in them.
Well, I don't like to end the news on a bad note. I do want to give a little bit of positivity in the face of all of this chaos that's going on. So, if you didn't know, Microsoft owns ZeniMax Media, which houses companies like Bethesda and id Software. And union
my
workers
favorite
at the company have voted to ratify their very first union contract. It has taken 2 years of negotiations, according to GameDeveloper.com. This will increase the minimum salaries for employees. It will include protections against arbitrary dismissal, and even has AI provisions as well. Now, currently, because of the size of the union, the contract only covers about 300 employees in Maryland and Texas. But it's a start. I know that it's hard to look at these numbers and just be like, well, it's just 300 people when we just talked about 9,000 people being let go. But it is a win, and we have to take these wins where we can.
We have to celebrate our wins. We absolutely do. And you know what? Small things lead to bigger things. And I would say to the unions, my fellow comrades, Tovarish, please exercise every power you have. Do not let them browbeat you into being like, oh, yeah, you're in a union, but, I don't think you need your union rep for this meeting. You do, always. Literally always. Mm-hmm. You need your union lawyer there with you when you talk to the boss. Literally always. Just always be there. Always. The union is more important than your job, and that's what you need to realize. A solidarity between you and your brothers is more important than what you do, because it protects what you do. Because the one person who will never, ever protect what you do is your boss, and the company and the HR. You and your workers, your fellow workers, your union are the only thing protecting you. Act like it.
Yep. So let's celebrate our wins. 300 employees. A lot of them, by the way, QA testers.
I wish them all the absolute best and a very, very happy prosperity.
Mm-hmm. All right. That's everything that we have for the news this week. But stick with us as we get into our main topic in the boss room.
Boss Room.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the show. It is time for the Boss Room, sometimes related to the news, sometimes not. This part of the show is where we can dive deeper into our opinions on things like this week's topic, John Wick versus the MCU.
Oh, man.
So, this week's episode is actually inspired by a Film Speak episode on YouTube called When the Director is Basically John Wick. And we will link the video in our notes just so you guys can watch that when you have a chance. A big part of this video is about how John Wick Ballerina, the spinoff to the wildly successful John Wick films, managed to be successful due in large part to because the director of the John Wick series was so hands-on with the universe. So yes, there was a failed Continental spinoff that happened, but honestly for John Wick spinoffs, that means it's 1-for-1 on wins and losses in the Wick universe. So, if you came here wondering if we were going to debate John Wick killing the MCU or vice versa, we're not.
No, I mean, there's no contest there. John Wick would kill Thanos in like half a second.
But if you would like to have that discussion, please have it in the comments of our episode. We would love to see how you guys feel about John Wick versus the MCU. So, now let's get to the point. What inspired this week's big talk was it that when you watch the trailer for The World of John Wick Ballerina, which is the full title of the fucking movie, I never got a hint, spoilers by the way, that John Wick makes an appearance in the film. And yeah, it's a small spoiler and I apologize, but that's what really inspired this talk, because while I was watching this Film Speak episode talk about how the director cares so much about the universe and that kind of Ballerina was failing until they brought the John Wick director in to kind of course correct for it, and they did reshoots and all this stuff, that I got to thinking about the fact that I never knew that John Wick was in the spinoff movie. And honestly, that shit doesn't happen in Marvel. Yeah. They fucking always give that shit away in every fucking MCU movie ever. Now,
I mean, I'm thinking back to like Spider-Man, like the first one, and in every trailer, there's Robert Downey Jr. just like front and center for all. There's 2 minutes in the trailer, and he's in the trailer for 30 seconds.
Yep.
Just being a big part of it.
I want to ask you a question because you've watched all the MCU. How much more excited would you have been if you had watched Captain America Civil War and didn't know Spider-Man was in it?
Oh my God. Like, when they do such a great job of introducing him in the movie, and all of the reactions to that movie when it came out are like, holy fuck, the MCU fixed Spider-Man.
Right.
Oh my God. If we hadn't known beforehand that Spider-Man was going to be in that movie, the universe's brain would have exploded. Like at the time, the MCU was it. It was everything. And even though we all knew Spider-Man was coming, we were like, man, those Spider-Man movies sure have been shit lately. I wonder what the MCU is going to do. How can they fix this? And by God, did they do it? Oh man, and Civil War might be the best Spider-Man ever was in the MCU, and that's saying a lot because he did some good work. But like that reveal and the combination with the rest of the cast, it's chef's kiss.
So
Good shit.
So here we are with the three of us, and I want to talk a bit about John Wick versus the MCU, what it does right, what it does wrong, what one can learn from the other. Now, I want to keep in mind while we're talking about this, this is not a hate discussion. Nobody is here to fucking hate on things and shit on things. We like to like things.
Yeah. I love the MCU, and it is more fun to like things than to hate.
This is just a discussion about how one group does something different than the other one. So my example was really that we didn't know John Wick was going to be in Ballerina. And that was fucking great. And maybe the MCU could learn something from that. But let's just reflect on those kind of things as we talk about John Wick versus the MCU in that capacity.
I want to talk about let me try and get his name right. Just real quick.
Well, speaking of names, I am glad Angelica Houston is going to be in the Ballerina movie.
Oh, and she is, and she's wonderful.
Because I really enjoyed her in John Wick 3.
Her in Ballerina is so good.
Yeah, no, she's wonderful. The director, and this is a whole history, and the reason I had to look this up is because I don't want to murder his name as badly as I could.
But you're going to.
But I'm going to a little bit. Chad Stahelski is the director of the John Wick series and was always a producer on the other projects and was brought in to help write the ship of the world of John Wick, the Ballerina. For anyone who doesn't know, and the story has been told before, so I'm not going to take a ton of time on it, but Chad Stahelski is Keanu Reeves. In every scene where Keanu Reeves is doing action for the last 25 years since The Matrix, he was his stuntman.
Yep.
And he had an incredible background in stunts and in all of the movies that he was in until the point where he wanted to direct. And him and Keanu Reeves were just good friends. Not that they looked alike, which they did, and not that they, learned all the same action, which they did, but like when they talk to each other, you can see a friendship and an understanding there. So when Chad comes to Keanu and says, hey, we have like no fucking money to make this action movie that I want to make. Will you be in it? I'm going to need you to do a lot of crazy shit, like learn all the choreography for a 20-minute scene in 2 weeks.
Also, he basically said in no uncertain terms, so we understand that actors as big as you are paid by the line.
Oh, yeah.
We're not going to give you a lot of lines.
Yeah, we don't have $20 million for you in this movie, bud. And, Keanu being the fucking Keanu that he is, was like, I'm here for you, brother. And that is how we have the entire John Wick universe. Now, this guy, and I'm going somewhere with this because I'm going to compare the John Wick universe to the MCU universe because both have really great world building and both have a continuity of story and of, theme. Consequences and war and revenge and more consequences and cycles of violence and, fucking with the inevitable. And it's such good shit in the John Wick universe. And a little bit I want to talk about Chad versus Kevin Feige. As Kevin Feige is running and leading the MCU, but he's not directing the movies. Frankly, he doesn't have fucking time for that. But even if he did, that's not his background. That's not his expertise. That's not his specialty. Neither is writing these movies. But he does know that they should have a continuity, that they should set up what's coming next, and they should a little bit talk about what came before. But the problem is in the MCU, we're getting to a point where those two things, before and after, are taking up far too much of our time. And they're leaving very little room for the movie to speak for itself. And that is never, ever, ever a problem in the John Wick universe. And I'm not just going to say it's because Chad is directing as well as show running. And to be fair, the MCU has a lot more characters and a lot more stories to tell than just one about John Wick. But now that we have the ballerina and we've seen that what we can do inside this universe without the main character being the main character, we know that we can pull this off. And we know that we can pull it off not just with fun and aplomb and keeping the spirit of the movies, but also with a little bit of grace and a little bit of class. And, not insulting the audience or talking down to them, not having endless fucking flashbacks to explain to you what happened in the other movies. We don't need it. We don't need it. And we're actually watching a Marvel show right now, Ironheart, that has not learned this lesson. Don't get me wrong, so far, we're only 3 episodes in, that I like Ironheart so far. But it is so determined to make me understand where this character came from and who she's talking about when she talks about Tony Stark and her references to the past and all of her ties to the MCU. And a lot of it I don't need. I don't need it. And the Netflix series did this best. They referenced the events of the MCU every once in a while just to show that we were in the same universe, but they didn't make characters
that which they were legally allowed to reference.
Exactly. But they didn't make the whole story about it. They didn't make it a consequence of the previous stuff. It gave you an original thing, and that's what I felt like the ballerina was. So, if I'm going to compare and contrast these two things, it's a continuity of vibe rather than a continuity of story. And really, that's what I'm looking for. And I know there are a lot of different vibes in the MCU. You can go from something like Iron Man to something like Thor to something like Captain America, and these are 3 very different vibes. And you throw in an Ant-Man, and that's just all chuckles. And then, you might throw in something like the Punisher, and that's very, very few chuckles. But, hopefully you get a continuity there. But that's difficult. And I'm not saying the MCU isn't harder than John Wick with its 4 movies and 2 spinoffs versus 34 movies and 17 on the way.
Right. Yeah.
Something like
that. It's difficult. It is definitely a tricky proposition. It is a numbers game at that point.
But in a microcosm, I think all of us here on the panel might feel like the MCU has something to learn from John Wick.
But if we talk about the way that the early MCU was, remember that the early MCU was not supposed to be connected. It was a joke at the end of Iron Man that Nick Fury showed up.
Right, and
it was
that's
never
because they thought there would never be a Thor.
They never thought any of that would fucking happen, and then it just happened. And
it's an accident.
And I don't want to do this, but I have to for a second. I need to bring something completely unrelated into this discussion because we're talking about John Wick versus the MCU, and we're talking about those things. We were talking about spin-offs specifically. And there's a Supernatural meme for everything. And I need to talk about Supernatural for a minute. And I'm not going to bore you with the history of Supernatural, but what I will tell you is that those of us who have seen all of Supernatural know that at least 3 different times within the show Supernatural, they tried to do spin-offs by starting the spin-off within the show itself, and it never worked. And you can tell what episodes those are. You can watch the way they're filmed, the characters that they're trying to make the main character in air quotes, and you're like, oh, this is a really crappy spinoff that you're trying. And again, 3 different times they tried to do it, and
James, I got 2 words for you: private practice.
You know what? I liked Private Practice. Stay off my nuts.
No. I know you did. You know what? I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know,
God damn it.
James, my hetero life mate, and I love this show, Grey's Anatomy. It is a medical drama that speaks to me. I've been there since the very beginning. The first season started during the writer's strike of 2008. It has 5 episodes, and then the rest of the show.
I was abused into it with my exes, but now I'm here.
I love that show, and it currently has at least 2 spinoffs that are running. And it had spinoffs that ran for several seasons and dipped away. And they didn't stand the test of time. But to be fair, Grey's is on season 15, 16, something like that.
It's on 22, man.
Yeah, it is on 22. Jesus Christ. And Private Practice was a whole episode of that show where one of the doctors from Grey's Anatomy goes to California and, goes to a private practice.
Oh, that's very obvious. Very, very obvious.
It's an episode of Grey's Anatomy, and it doesn't need to be, but we're just doing spin-offs and pretending there might be boobs, even though it's ABC, and there definitely will be no boobs.
Did every shot in the show get a soft glow
All of
filter?
them did. I
Absolutely.
promise
They're
you
in
it did.
California, James. That's just what California looks like, John. You should know that.
You lived in L.A.
Does not everything in LA have a soft glow? I know
fair.
Tay Diggs does.
Fair.
Oh, absolutely. In my heart, Tay Diggs.
Tay Diggs has a soft glow whenever I look at him for any reason. But yeah, no, spin-offs. It's hard.
It is. It is a very
Even under
difficult
the
thing.
best of circumstances.
Right. And so for John Wick being 1-for-1, that's understandable. And Marvel back in the day, I mean, like, the only spin-offs that we had were Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which had a big promise behind it, right? Agents of
Yeah.
S.H.I.E.L.D. was supposed to be the show that you watched that, like, was your glue between the MCU movies.
It was on
and
actual television,
then
wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, it was
then
ABC.
ABC, again. But then it just didn't. They couldn't get the rights they needed to really, like, they got Sif in one episode, and you're like, that was cool, bro.
Yeah, this was right at the time that Marvel became Disney, and Disney looked at Netflix and ABC and went, why are they making money off of our shit?
Yep.
So let's shut down all the Netflix shows which were unique and different from the MCU, and let's shut down. We'll leave Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. there because people are actually watching it and it has ratings, and we'll even do some spin-offs. What was that one? The Inhumans.
Oh, yeah.
There was some bad shit in there, guys. But like overall, they were just like, let's stop giving them A or B list anything, and make them see what they can do with the C list stuff, and just make their show pretend that it has nothing at all to do with the MCU. And
let's
of
not
course, they all died.
Let's not forget that there are MCU shows that nobody talks about. So I'm going to talk about, I just want to briefly touch on a couple of these. Technically, Legion, MCU.
Yeah.
That is one of the most brilliant Marvel things to ever exist. If you've never watched Legion,
Noah Hawley.
please God, watch Legion. It is one of the most brilliant pieces of MCU anything ever.
Absolutely.
And, oh, yeah. But I want to talk about the other stuff real quick. I'm going to very briefly touch on this. There are things like The Runaways, Cloak and Dagger. Those were both on Freeform, I believe.
Yeah.
There was one other one. Was it Hellstrom was the other one I was thinking of. Hellstrom.
Oh, I remember that
It
now.
was really good. If you never saw Hellstrom, it was wild, man.
Hellstrom was cool.
It was about, if all of you were like super excited that like maybe they'll bring Mephisto into the MCU someday. Bro, Hellstrom was a really good show. It just was canceled after one season, like Cloak and Dagger, like The Runaways. All of these things were like experimental pieces that came out. And so it's easy to mock like some of the shit like Secret Invasion today. Because it's
well,
easy.
Secret Invasion deserves nothing but contempt and mockery. I'm just saying.
Right. Absolutely. But like John Wick is 1-for-1 on its spinoffs right now.
Oh, yeah.
We have one failed completely, and that being the Continental series, and then one successful being the movie itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's still a kind of an MCU track record.
No, it's pretty good.
As long as
I don't know how many. Well, like I don't know what's a spinoff and what isn't in the MCU anymore. It's kind of hard to tell,
Right.
Unless you just count stuff that they did outside of Disney Plus.
that is
right?
true. That's a good question.
But
I have a thought.
hit us.
It's something that annoys me, but also like because what I like about the John Wick universe is the simplicity of the premise. Like fuck you backstory. A guy who's an awesome killer, his dog's dead, and he's gonna go kill everybody about it. Cool,
Easy,
cool.
simple to understand. Plays right through.
But paradoxically or contradictory, there's so much lore.
World building.
And like this symbol matches that symbol, and we found this secret code decoder ring thing in this secret place that only 2 or 3 people on Earth know about, and that's how we realized that I can hand you this glass now. Like what's like that stuff? Kind of like
See,
I get so exhausted, and I get exhausted for the same reason in the Marvel universe, but at least in that universe, I'm like, okay, they're an alien with supernatural powers. I guess I'll let this moment pass. Sure. But in the John Wick universe, I'm like, what's going on here?
So for me, here's a difference, John, and I'm going to disagree with you a little
Okay.
bit. Because in the MCU, when weird shit is happening, there's either always a fish out of water or a wisecracking raccoon or something to be like, what the fuck is that? Or like, oh my God, that alien fish's head just exploded. Did you see that? In John Wick, when you go into a hotel and pay with a coin that you don't recognize, and then go downstairs to the bar and pay a coin through the exact same kind of coin through a slot to get into the bar, there's no one sitting there going, wait, how much are those coins worth? Okay. Wait, is it like one coin for one thing? Why is a coin a drink and entry into the club and a stay at the hotel? What is this system of currency?
I'll give you that.
We don't have that.
It is
We're
definitely
just
not as
along for the ride.
patronizing.
Everyone in the John Wick universe, ever, always, and this goes right through to the ballerina. I didn't watch the Continental. I didn't hear any good things, so I didn't want to ruin John Wick for myself that way. But there's no one standing around trying to explain to you or point out how stupid this world building is. They just go along with it.
That's fair.
Everyone you meet who you give a coin to in the John Wick universe is like, thank you, here's your drink. Thank you, you can come in. Thank you, here's your map. Here's your gun. It's just, you don't need to know. And you don't need to point and laugh. All you have to do is sit there and enjoy the story. And that, to me, it makes the John Wick version better than the MCU
That's
version.
fair. Yeah, it's not as patronizing. You are right.
But also on the same time, it's easy for both franchises, both John Wick and the MCU, to get bigger and grander. I mean, let's not forget the fact that John Wick has a lot of humor in it. And
we
a lot of people take John Wick very seriously. Remember the falling down the stairs scene. There's no reality in which that you took that joke seriously. Like that was them laughing at the audience going, wouldn't it be funny if we made John Wick fall down the stairs like a black and white film for like 5 minutes before he gets back up to do all of it again. So like John Wick and the MCU have that similarity that they do take their action scenes very similarly or very seriously, but also do have fun with it, right? They know when to engage with the humor, when to let the audience breathe a little bit. We've got the video up right now where we're trying to do the fun.
What movie was this from?
That's
Thor.
The Thor.
Okay, I have not seen that one yet. Yeah.
That is he gets up the stairs and like it's a huge amount of stairs.
He fights about 100 people going up the stairs. He gets kicked down all of the stairs and then he fights up them again.
Yep. And it's just one big joke.
Yeah.
And so, like, I appreciate that kind of, that's something that I appreciate about both the MCU and John Wick is that they're kind of aware of how silly a lot of this stuff is. Let's not forget the fact that nobody talks about it. I know that we've been joking for a while about the, like, hey, nobody's talking about the fact that there was a Celestial in the ocean, and that finally got addressed in that really bad Captain America movie. But nobody's talking about the fact there was a kaiju fight in Egypt in one of the best Marvel shows ever. There was just a kaiju fight.
Yeah, like over the pyramids, and we're not
talking about that.
We don't need to. No, we don't have Oscar Isaac's money this season, so
I need Marvel.
We're not talking about it.
I need Marvel to have Oscar Isaac's money.
I mean, it should.
Please, everything.
I don't know. He did Dune now. He's very famous.
Look, man, they're affording Pedro Pascal, and that's like the dad in everything these days.
That's true.
Like Oscar Isaacs is basically just like who you get when you can't get Pedro Pascal. And I say that as a compliment. I love both of them so much. Please have my children. But like, yeah, like also Moon Knight season 2 when?
Oh God, right? Oh man. The thing, and then I could talk about the John Wick series forever.
Sure.
This is as a major MCU enjoyer, but if I'm comparing the two, I know which one I enjoy more. James last year had, I'm going to call it the opportunity in a very aggrandizing to myself statement that he had the opportunity last year for me to show him a lot of my favorite action movies. And if you go through the John Wick series, every one of those movies, either the protagonist or the main antagonist is in a John Wick movie. Fighting the master, John Wick, and just going to town. We have people from the Raid 1, people from the Raid 2, people from, Donnie Yen I mean, in John Wick 4, we
And
have
for some reason, Ruby Rose?
oh yeah, Ruby Rose is in there.
yeah.
She's
a
a pretty
badass.
fucking great action star too.
How?
So was Halle Berry in the
Yeah.
third
Oh,
one.
I did love Halle
Halle
Berry
Berry
in there.
fucking killed it in that movie.
Yeah.
Would drink her spit water. But yeah, the movie is always putting cameos in place that people like Chad Stahelski, people who love action and love action movies and martial arts movies and choreographed combat on film, are going to go apeshit for. And I feel like the MCU needs to be a little more careful in its casting when it comes to stuff like that. MCU, once again, as part of this argument, has way bigger problems than John Wick does.
Sure.
No one cares who the antagonists of John Wick 5 is, as long as they're cool. People cared very deeply about who was going to be the Fantastic Four for years before that movie was even announced. And everyone had their own idea.
People had issue with Pedro Pascal being cast as Reed
Oh,
Richards.
absolutely, because
Mostly
everyone wants
racist.
John Krasinski to do it because for
mostly-
some fucking reason.
Because he has to be white in
Yeah.
white people's eyes, I guess.
And you know, they're like, hey, we should do John Krasinski and his wife. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Emily Blunt, not John Krasinski's wife. Emily Blunt. Oh, my God. She's amazing. They wanted them to be, you know, Reed Richards and Sue Storms. Stu Richards, whatever we want to do, whatever stage of their relationship they're in. But we didn't get that because, one, it was too obvious. Two, it was probably too expensive and time consuming. But three, it's just on the nose, and we don't need it, and we can do better. And you know what? I'm very proud of the MCU for not caving to that. But at the same time, they have issues with casting. I mean, we've had it a lot. And I'm forgetting his name, but he's a serial abuser who was going to be cast as Kane the Destroyer.
Oh, you're talking about Jonathan Majors?
Thank you, Jonathan Majors. Like we don't like there are always going to be problems, especially when you're working with celebrities where you have to keep them, you know, consumable for a matter of a decade.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard. People are going to have issues. Tom Cruise had issues back in the day where he was like literally didn't appear in movies for a few years. You know, like, and I mean, now he's making the last Mission Impossible stuff and still an actor, but he had his moments where we weren't casting him, and that's the same for everyone else. And it's harder for the MCU, but
It is.
I feel like they should be more careful when they cast people.
True.
And they should be, you know, not just looking for bankable faces and bankable stars. They should be looking for the type of casting like Donnie Yen, like the amazing actors from the Raid movies. They should be looking for things that fans of the genre will go crazy for. Horror has this down. I don't know why the MCU doesn't have this down. When a horror movie makes a sequel to a movie that hasn't been seen since the 80s, they go fucking crazy. You know, they're like, oh, we're going to do Candyman, but with the original Candyman. And you're like, yes, of course. How could you not? And if they didn't, no one would care.
You know, I do want to do a quick shout out because casting Simu Liu as Shang-Chi.
Oh, that was brilliant.
That was inspired.
Yeah,
fucking
that was
casting.
excellent.
That is an underappreciated movie, and I will defend it.
Yeah, and on this show in particular, this show you're watching now, dear listener and viewer, I have praised Sarah Finn for her casting choices because they are fucking impeccable a lot of the time. It's mainly for the main characters, and I have no qualms with that. Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man.
Chris Hemsworth out of
Chris
nowhere.
Hemsworth is fucking Thor
left field.
out of nowhere.
I would go so far as to say I think the MCU is fantastic at casting, but if your boat is that fucking big, it's gonna catch barnacles.
Right. Well,
Oh,
they
sure,
don't
sure,
care
yeah.
about the bad guys, and we see this even all the way to Iron Man. They wasted.
Jeff Bridges.
They wasted Jeff Bridges on the first Iron Man movie.
Yeah.
And you know what? Chris Evans, that is America's ass. like we absolutely cannot have anyone else maybe ever play Captain America.
No.
You know, and then Captain America evolves, and you know, he changes into different people, and that's great. But the Steve Rogers, that's
Oh, there
Chris
will never
Evans.
be another Steve Rogers.
No, we can't. And I mean, even though it had a different start, Mark Ruffalo, to me, that's Bruce Banner. It just is.
Yeah.
And those are all very good. But imagine wasting Tim Roth on the Abomination.
But aren't we so glad they wasted Harrison Ford? They just burnt that match.
I'm glad that we're done casting Harrison Ford as a
done.
society.
Yeah.
Let him retire.
Okay, so I have one other point that I really want to bring up for the John Wick versus the MCU, and this is a really difficult one to talk about because the MCU, by its very nature, requires a certain amount of CG given the powers of the people involved.
Always going to be an effects heavy
Right,
movie.
there will always be an effects heavy movie, and so what we are, the point I'm about to bring up next could be a little bit difficult for us to discuss and debate, but obviously one of the things that really works in John Wick's favor is that all of the action is very physical. Even just gunplay, gun kata, as it were, for those of us.
They do as much as they can in camera, especially when it comes to the fight.
Right. But one of the complaints that people have had about the MCU for years is that, and this is just a common complaint online, is that so many final battles have to be CG instead of trying to find another way to do those things practically. And obviously when people have laser eyes, you can't do that practically. Mm-hmm. But I still feel like there's an in-between somewhere where you can mix your physical effects or your physical motions with not practical effects, but with CG. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out the best way to word this, but
no, I have a good example. Let's talk about the Black Widow movie.
Okay.
Specifically because there's a lot of action sequences between people in that movie that you could very easily do in camera. And the director of that movie had a lot of ideas for what they wanted to do with the fights in that movie. And they were told by Kevin Feige, no, don't you worry. We've prevised all the action scenes. You don't need to worry about it. The same happened in The Eternals with that director. They were told, don't worry, we already have all the fights ready to go. You don't need to worry about that. And a good director goes, wait, what? We don't have a story. You barely showed me the brand new fresh script. What do you mean you already have the fights planned? In John Wick, and in every good action movie, which all of these movies, every MCU movie, in one sense or another, is an action movie. Action tells a story. Action is a dance with give and take and back and forth that not only tells you about the characters, but where they are in their journey, what they're doing moving forward. And it's all given away in a lot of the MCU for, cool stunts that are done with CG. What I really want to bring up when it comes to the Black Widow is a lot of the stuff that they did in CG, they really didn't have to. I know it was easier and cheaper than to try and make a practical set that looks like a floating fortress falling out of the sky. But some of those shots look unforgivably terrible. And they are just CG. It's not ILM's fault. It's not anyone who worked on the movie's fault. It's the fault of people who visited it that way and were like, it's good enough.
If you want to compare apples to apples when we're talking about this, take all of your thoughts on Black Widow and then think about what you watched when you watched the Thunderbolts.
Yeah. I mean, even more so, let's go to what I could take right out of the MCU and drop into any John Wick movie is Captain America Civil War standing on the street fighting. No, not Civil War. Winter Soldier. Mm-hmm. Winter Soldier on the street fighting with Bucky while he's still wearing his mask, and they're just having a knife fight in the street. Mm-hmm. That looks like a John Wick fight, and that is memorable. I remember every bit of it to this day, where if you ask me about most fights in the MCU, I would run a complete blank. But I remember that fight. I remember the beats of it. I remember finding out that was, Bucky and being like, oh, fuck, what is this? And it's so cool. And that's what fights are supposed to be like in movies. They're not supposed to be the part where you turn your brain off. These days, depending on the MCU movie, the action scenes are when I get up to pee because the rest of the movie happens around them. And if I watch them again later, which I usually will, I'll see the cool fight stuff, but it's not going to tell me anything about the movie. It's not going to tell me anything about the character.
Just kind of as a point to that, I remember that when WandaVision came out and we got to the final episode, literally nobody was talking about the like Wanda Agatha fight.
No.
Yeah.
Everybody was talking about the Ship of Theseus discussion.
Yeah.
Like that was the boss battle that everybody really like. Oh, they
Vision literally
had a
having
philosophy debate.
Yeah, just arguing with himself about what he and they are.
And you do see those kind of things in John Wick, where like they discuss like between the characters in these like very quick moments of just like what the philosophy of being an assassin is in this world, and like why you do or don't belong here, or like what makes you valid in that kind of universe.
Yeah.
And yeah, both franchises do get these moments of like really cool insight that I love to see. Both the MCU and John Wick have this amazing world building. Obviously, the MCU has the backing of the fact that it's 50 plus years of comics. And then John Wick is a new franchise, but like I guarantee you that many of the people that worked on John Wick fucking read comics growing up, and probably they read specifically Marvel comics growing up. And there's like a Venn diagram like overlap of John Wick and the MCU. I feel like Thunderbolts kind of fits into that a little bit if you've seen it. It's very action heavy, very practical, very like we're gonna There's a reason why like Florence Pugh insisted on like jumping off the top of a roof.
Yeah.
When Kevin Feige was like, our insurance doesn't cover that, and she's like, "Fuck it, I'm doing it anyway."
Yeah, it just like literally convinced the cast and crew and directors and insurance people like, no, I'm going to.
Yeah, that's some John Wick shit right there.
It is.
Like,
It really is.
Yeah.
Just like Keanu falling down the stairs, just like anything else,
Yep.
learning the fight choreography and getting thrown off a balcony, literally his like third day there.
Mm-hmm.
Not Raul Coley. Who am I thinking of? Slumdog Millionaire. God, I lost his name. In Monkey Man, directing the movie, breaking his hand on set the first day and filming the rest of the movie that way.
Mm-hmm.
These are, people who will put their ass on the line and their blood on the screen, their actual blood on the screen.
Oh, you're thinking of Dev Patel.
Thank you so
Yes.
much. Dev Patel.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just, that's, people recognize that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Leonardo DiCaprio is not my favorite person or my favorite actor, but when I think about the work that he did in Django Unchained, I'm like, that's a fucking dedicated actor right there. That is someone who worked past all their inner whatever to film a scene in character in a way that makes sense. And like that, you can't help but respect something like that. And it's so hard to see stuff like that in the MCU these days. It is few and far between where it is bleeding off the screen in every single John Wick movie. There's no way you can watch the ballerina and go, man, Ana de Armas phoned it in. No, she did
She
not. Gave everything she had to every bit of that movie, and she was the heart and soul of it. And that's it. She shared a screen with Keanu Reeves, and I cared more about her character than his, and that is fucking saying something.
Right? Like, absolutely, that is what happened. And I will say that one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about this as we start to wrap this whole discussion up was because a lot of what's going on in John Wick right now reminds me of the early days of the MCU. When the MCU was not treated as a giant universe, it was treated as a episode to episode movie, right? We did Iron Man. All right, we're going to do Captain America next. Maybe we'll do a joke tie-in at the end.
Yeah.
And then we'll maybe try out Thor and see if that works. And then eventually like, oh, fuck, we can do the Avengers. John Wick is in those early stages. John Wick right now is in the pre-Avengers stages where you can do some spin-offs and introduce other characters and rest in peace Lance Henriksen, fucking Henriksen, like all this stuff that's going on with the fucking with John Wick right now is this. How do I describe it? It's at the very beginning stages where the MCU was, and if it goes down the road the MCU had gone down, which is becoming very big very quickly, it's going to be a problem.
Right. Yeah. And to be honest, I don't think that's something that Chad would even want.
Right.
But there is always that danger. If we chase that money, if we have to have bigger earnings for, our New Line Cinema every quarter, then, I'm sure there are people asking them to franchise it in a million different ways. But hopefully, they have a means to protect themselves because, it's I don't want to see that happen to John Wick. I want John Wick to be a franchise that comes out every few years, if even that often. And we're going to get, a well-told story that doesn't necessarily even continue the story, but something like The Ballerina just takes place in it and gives me my action movie that is second to none versus what's coming out these days. And, really just gives me the ride that I'm looking for. And that's, that's all I want out of it. And frankly, that's all I ever wanted out of the MCU. But, just to speak to your point on Lance Hendrickson and like losing somebody that is such a major part of your show. Ian McShane, you're not allowed to die. If you're listening to this, just until I die. That is your sentence.
That being said, I know that we've been going back and forth on John Wick versus the MCU, putting out pros and cons and all of these things for both sides of the argument. I think that my one big takeaway for a lot of this is that both franchises could definitely learn something from one another. And I don't mean that as a diss to either of them. I'm saying that both of them are very strong properties that I very much love watching. I will always go to the movies. I will check out the TV shows, And for every Continental, you have a Secret Invasion. And hey, look, that's the way that it is. I think that it is a valid argument to say that maybe the Marvel is pushing too much, too fast, too hard. And John Wick is lucky enough to be indie enough still to not have to do that.
Yeah, we were at a place at one point, don't forget, for a few years there, where we were getting 3 or 4 Marvel movies a year.
Yeah.
That was obviously too much. They fucked up doing that. We're in a much better place now, especially considering, and this could have been a part of the discussion earlier, but we will talk certainly more about it very soon. But we have James Gunn and the DC entering the fight here very soon.
Oh yeah,
and they've already thrown a few punches with with Monster Squad and stuff like that, and obviously Harley Quinn stuff on HBO. We are going to have more to talk about here very soon when it comes to these franchises and what they can learn from each other. And if there's anyone on earth that I expect to learn from the MCU, it's James Gunn.
Oh, absolutely.
So look very much forward to what we have to say about Superman whenever it happens.
We're 2 weeks away, maybe?
If that. It's the 12th. It's next weekend.
Yeah.
Not like this is the 4th. Yeah, it's next weekend.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And then a couple weekends after that, we have the Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four 2 weeks after that.
Which is super exciting.
Oh, yeah.
If you didn't know, we're going to go see the Fantastic Four. I bought us all matching shirts to go watch the Fantastic Four.
We'll put up a picture on the socials.
Yeah. We'll do a picture on the socials so you can see what we all look like in our future Foundation shirts. I know this was a weird topic, comparing John Wick to the MCU, but I really did feel like there was a through line between where John Wick is now versus what the early days of the MCU were. And I think that we did touch on that. I think that everybody had some great opinions about it. And I appreciate us all being very civil about this discussion. That being said, again, if you want to tell us whether or not John Wick could kill the MCU, then let us know in the comments.
Like 90% of the MCU would die to John Wick.
You think so? Like 90%?
Yeah. You would have to be some kind of ghost or impervious to all bullets and explosions.
So instead of doing our normal break, we're going to make our epilogue really quick because we've been running a bit long on this. So we're going to jump right into the epilogue. Just real quick, what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks. John, what have you been doing?
Same as always, except this time I swear, I am one DLC mission away from finishing Borderlands 3.
Oh, awesome.
Like Dunzo
You're almost
Dunzo.
ready until 4 comes out.
Yeah.
Right
So,
on time.
and for the record of the whole game, my favorite was the Blood Sand Western, the Western, basically Red Dead Redemption, but in Borderlands.
Yep.
If I could get more of that, that would be great.
Hell yeah.
Hector, what have you been doing?
Oh, man. So there's been TV shows, obviously. The new season of The Bear is out. I'm about halfway through it. I love that show more than anything.
Bear season 4.5.
Yep. I finished the Liza P. Overture DLC, which was fantastic. I am now, I believe, a little over halfway through Claire Obscure 33. Look forward to our group episode on that.
We are going to do a full episode.
There are layers. There is a whole ogre worth of layers to talk about.
You finished Act 1 and you felt sad.
Yeah, there were there was some sadness, and I don't think I'm even through the I think there's more sadness
There's
to come.
a lot more
but
sadness.
I think that's the point.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
The grief is the point.
We'll get there. Let's see. That's TV, games, movies. James for the first time yesterday saw No Country for Old Men.
It was good.
Yeah, it seemed like he really liked it. It's one of my favorite movies of all time because I'm a huge Coen Brothers fan and because it came out the same year as There Will Be Blood, and it was the first year I was actually invested in the Oscars because I was like, who's going to win stuff? Let's see. I can't really. I think that's it aside from my normal viewing schedule. So all of that's been really good.
All right. For me, keep it very simple. Watch The Bear. It was great. Had a good time. 2 thumbs up. I've been playing a lot of Death Stranding 2. I will not talk about that because it just came out. It's really good, though. I have been going through, obviously, my year of indies. So I've been playing a lot of indies that I never got around to. My big one this week was I played Tacoma.
Yes.
Which was from the makers of Gone Home.
Two games you should play if you have not.
I actually played this one at the office, and at my office I have like one of those, I don't know how big it is, but giant widescreen fucking curved monitors. And so I got to play a space game where I just had a giant widescreen for it. Now I kind of want to play all my space games on a giant widescreen monitor. That was pretty great. Now I want to know what playing a mech game on that would be like. But my work computer could not run that. But yeah, it's been just me going through some indies, playing a lot of stuff. Like I said, right now, Death Stranding 2 has been kind of my sole focus. I don't want to spoil it, but it's bigger, it's better, it's sadder, I'm going to have trouble this year, honestly, Hector, because I know, like, coming into last month, I was like, Expedition 33 Game of the Year. Mm-hmm. And I still hold to that. But man, I haven't finished Death Stranding yet, and it's really fucking good.
Yeah.
It's so good. And I wish more people would give that game an honest shot because it does deserve to be experienced. And the first game was so very much about how we connect with one another as human beings. And I mean, like Kojima literally puts on the poster. Like on the second game, it's like, should we connect to one another?
Should we have connected?
And the answer is always going to be yes. But the reason we ask that question is because of the tragedy that we have to deal with when we do emotionally open ourselves up to one another. And that's the thing that's explored at great length in Death Stranding 2 is how do we handle it when we're emotionally vulnerable to other people and we get hurt because of that. And I'm sounding really pretentious when I'm talking about a game that deals with ghosts and baby strapped to your chest. But you know what? It's really fucking good and it makes me sad sometimes. And you know what? My games of the year this year are going to be ones that make me feel fucking sad.
Hey, it happened.
We are Sex Bomb and we're here to make you feel sad and stuff. So that's what I've been going on with the epilogue for myself. We'll have tons of recommendations coming down the pipeline. We appreciate everybody tuning in this week for the weird topic of John Wick versus the MCU. We hope that you very much enjoyed it. But that's everything we have for the show this week. Don't forget that you'd head over to goodnight.gg to become a patron of our show. We were going to be putting up our very first Tales from the Crypt recap episode very, very soon. You can head over to facebook.com/GNGGcast where you can chat with us, as well as at GNGGcast on Twitter, and talk to me at goodnight.gg on Blue Sky. So until next time, for Hector, this is James.
And for James, this is Hector.
And for you, this is me.
Everyone, good night and good game.
Good game, y'all.
The fucking with John Wick right now is this, how do I describe it? It's the very beginning stages where the MCU was. And if